everyone, it's Melody with Design by Melody, and I am here today with a 9 by 12 layout. Now, if you are following me on Instagram, and if you're not, please go follow me on Instagram. I'm just Design by Melody on Instagram. I usually post all of my social media links below in the description on each video, but last Friday, I think, either Thursday or Friday, I posted a picture of a pile of supplies that I have sitting on my desk. So I've decided that instead of taking the time to go through those supplies, I will just go ahead and try to use some of them. Then maybe by the time I actually sit down and put them up, I won't have quite so many to put away. That's kind of like a backwards way of doing it, but you know, it works. And this layout you're actually going to notice is a different way. I don't normally start with the photo and work around the photo. I usually find the photo and then find my background and then build up from there. Well, this one's kind of done a little bit backwards. I started with the photo, started embellishing the photo, and then the last thing I did was add the paper and the journaling. And the reason I did that is because this pile of supplies had all of the embellishments on the top, and I felt like it was going to be too difficult to move everything to get to the paper on the bottom to then go back to the supplies that were on the top and the embellishments that were on the top. So I've just decided to work with the embellishments first, kind of build my photo cluster and figure out what I feel works, and then go from there. And it's a completely different way of putting a layout together. But for me, I actually felt like it was not much different than starting with the paper on the background. You just have something different to start with, and you use the inspiration that you find from each of these products to continue to build the layout, just like I would with using the paper as the first thing I put down. I use the paper to determine what embellishments I'll add. So for this, I was using the embellishments to determine what papers I'll add. This photo, if you watched my video on Tuesday, I did a pocket layout with some photos from Kaylin's birthday, and this is another photo. This is the photo that I had pulled out and decided not to add to that pocket layout because I was going to do an individual layout instead. This is a picture of Kaylin completely cheesing it, eating his edible arrangement that he got for his birthday. He's really not into cake and icing very much. He likes ice cream, but he doesn't like cake and icing. He'll take a bite or two of it and then be done with it. So instead of getting that for his birthday, he got some edible arrangements delivered to him from, I believe it was from my sister, but I'm not entirely sure. This was 3.5 years ago these photos are from, so I don't remember who sent him the edible arrangements, but the point is that it was perfect for him because he is much more into fruit and chocolate than he is into cake and icing. Part of the embellishments that I had were these pocket cards. Now, I knew I wasn't going to do a pocket layout, but I thought there might be a card that I could use for journaling or maybe use to cut out some embellishments from. Now, I have this video sped up ×4, so you're going to see me flip through these fairly quickly, but it really kind of gives you an idea of my thought process. I literally touch every piece of product that I have sitting out when I'm working with a kit, or anytime I'm pulling things out of drawers to try to make a layout. I literally touch every little piece of thing and determine if I can use it or not. I have a couple of the cards laid out here that I thought were possibilities. I was still at this point playing around with the idea of making pink an element on this layout, and it will eventually come into play at the very end. But the majority of the layout is actually whites, grays, and this teal color. And I did use some Smoky Shadow ink from Papertrey Ink, and I talked about Papertrey Ink in my last process video, that pocket layout I did on Tuesday, about how they're going out of business. Well, not technically going out of business, they're changing names, but there's going to be a new website and everything. So the inks I actually purchased from Papertrey Ink, the company as Papertrey Ink, and from the Papertrey Ink website. So I will list that below because it is still available. And this stamp set is actually the Fillable Frames number 5 stamp set from Papertrey Ink as well. And I paid $1 for this. This was one of their sale stamps whenever I purchased the ink about a week and a half ago. So if it is still available, I will link it in the description box below. I'm not entirely sure if it is available. I had a couple rolls of washi tape, so I cut out, this is actually a snap washi tape, and this thing is probably 10 years old, to be honest with you. But I cut out the calendar, and then I'm just circling the day of the week, the month, and the day of the month. That was a cool way to kind of to document the day. A little bit different whenever the birthday obviously is the same date each and every year, but the day of the week is kind of different. So I thought that's just an interesting thing to document. From way back a long time ago, if you have been a subscriber for a long time, I have a family history book that I haven't worked on in a really long time, but I do have it, and it's the history of my family, and I put in there the birthdays, but the way I did it is that I took a calendar, like a blank calendar, and I filled in the day, like the actual month of the year that they were born. It's like my father was born in 1956, so I found September of 1956 on the calendar and filled in the dates according to that specific year, and then put his date on the calendar, just because I thought it was interesting to know that this person was born on a Tuesday, or this person was born on a Friday, or whatever it was. It's kind of irrelevant, but I think it's interesting. All right, so I'm continuing to go through the embellishments that are in this giant pile. It was a kit at one point that I put together, and then things just continued to get piled on it. And then when I moved my office, things that had fallen out of their organizational methods just continue to get piled into this pile. Scraps were piled into this pile. There's just a lot on this pile. And some of it coordinates and some of it doesn't. But whenever you're making a layout, that's the creative part, is where you can figure out what works together and what doesn't. Because if I do another layout, and I probably will continue to do layouts with this pile of supplies until it's a little bit more manageable, that'll be a lot easier to put away. Until I get to that point, I'm just going to continue to work with different photos and different papers and different embellishments, and each one will probably look very, very different. I've got pieces that I have cut out of cards. I've got pieces from die cut packs. I've got pieces that I've stamped. I've got pieces that I've punched. So that teal doily is a doily that came that way. It's like a tone-on-tone polka dot doily. And then that vellum doily is one I punched with a punch myself. I've got cork hearts. I've got washi tape. I've got... what else do I have on here? That little camera is something I had cut out from a Snap matchbook is what it's called. It's a Fancy Pants Design matchbook notelets is what that was. And I cut that little camera out of it. I've got these Jenny Bolin alphas that are going to go right here on the layout. I kind of like using this mat. This is a large mat, a large craft mat. And I like that it has this 12 by 12 box in the center because it helps me know what my craft space is. So I'm basically using that as a template for my background paper. So this is where I decided I need to go ahead and find a paper because I think my embellishments are almost done, and they were almost done at this point. I needed to add my journaling, but I also wanted to go ahead and find a background paper to get it adhered so then I can determine if anything else needs to be added. Now it takes me quite a while going through lots and lots of papers. Actually works. And then I found this stack of papers, and this was actually not in the stack of papers that were on my desk, but it was in the stack of papers that were on top of my pattern paper storage. Now, they don't fit in my pattern paper storage because my pattern paper storage is full at the moment. But these were on top, so I just grabbed those to see if there was anything else that worked. And I ended up finding these 9 by 12 papers that I had pulled out of a paper pad a long time ago. And I decided to use this. So this is a grid pattern, and it's got a teal. It matches that teal doily almost exactly. It's got a teal grid print, and then it's just got a white border. And I thought it would work really well with this photo and the layout as I have it because it's nice and clean and crisp. But I also felt like there was just not enough color. So I'm going to take this pink doily. It's a hot pink and white pattern doily. And this is another one that I punched out myself. That's the same punch I used on that vellum as I used on this pink doily. And I'm just going to layer it in my corners here. I was going to overlap that, but I felt like it created too much trap space. Whereas if I separated it, then it was a completely separate element. And then I'm going to put a little bit of it up here on the top right beside where it says Kaylin. And then I'll trim off the excess. And I am going to kind of go back and forth on this, adjust it and move it around as I determine exactly how I want it placed on there. thought about overlapping Kaylin first, and then I decided not to, and so I'm going to move it. I think I move it like 3 times. So I have to trim it off first to see exactly how much pink is on here, and then I'll move it and adjust it. So I felt like that's a little too much pink, but I did want to try to bring it in one more spot. I end up not. I just leave it in the corners, and then that calendar down at the bottom has a little bit of, it's kind of a tomatoey red line around the outside of it, so it does bring just a slight hint of a pink or a red tone. But I'm still trying to see if I want to make another piece of it fit here. And this is where I'm still like, okay, it's just too much. So I trim off a little bit more, move it around a little bit more, and then I realize I have glue sticking out, so I have to adjust that. But that's pretty much how it lands. Just a little bit of pink, but mostly the teals, the grays, the whites, and the blacks. And then I'm taking these adhesive bling pieces and just kind of scattering those around. I'm making a triangle with 2 of the bling pieces and each of the cork hearts. So that's kind of my trio of 3. And then I realized, because I'm a little OCD, that my photo was not lined up properly on the grid. So I had to move it to make it look good. Then I went to my computer, printed out some journaling. I'm going to read it to you. It just says, Kaylin is not a huge fan of cake or icing, so he was treated with his very own edible arrangement. He loves fruit and chocolate, so it was perfect. And I didn't know the sizing, so I printed it in 3 different font sizes when I typed this up on my computer, and then I'm just actually trimming out the middle one. This ended up being a 9.0 font, but I can't remember the font style I picked. I always usually pick something different each time. I have a favorites, but I like to kind of vary it up on my layouts, and I really actually prefer printed journaling versus handwritten journaling. I have my own handwriting everywhere in my album, so I'm not concerned about not having my handwriting. I have it everywhere, whether it's notes that I've written, lists that I've made, all different kinds of things like that. So I'm not concerned about not having my handwriting in the album. It is in there. So whenever I have lots of journaling to do, I like the clean, crisp look of printed journaling. And then this is actually going to finish out this layout. I hope you guys have enjoyed this today. I will continue probably working with this pile of supplies that are on my desk. So you're probably going to see some of these things repeat and show up in different layouts. But for now, that is it today. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I will be back soon. Bye.